This is our first time broadcasting from the new corner desk, so...
Yes, and if you haven't seen I guess it's the most recent video that's up of the tour of the new office and the new desk space, it is awesome, but we got to get used to, like, where things go and, like, where to stick a tripod, where to put a light, where to put a camera and a computer, and it's all different than we're used to, so, yeah, but we love the desk.
Yes. Loving the setup, loving the new space it's created for us. Definitely nice to have some sanity back. And that's what we're talking about this evening is...
Sanity?
Kind of, sort of. It's related.
It is actually very related.
Okay, so you want to get started?
I think we can. It's officially time. We can officially start, and we're officially here, so...
All right, well, I am Cherie.
I'm Chris.
And...
Imagine the names are reversed there.
No, they're correct.
See, wait, because it's mirrored, of course. Yes, got it.
Yeah, see, that's my name. That's your name. We're good.
I'm very confused.
See, good, really good. We're Technomadia, and we have been full-time nomads since 2006. First 11 years in various RVs, and now we split our time between a boat and an RV.
And we are on the boat right now, so you notice there's water behind us. If you're lucky, you might see our friendly neighborhood manatee named Bob go past.
Or dolphins have been springing up back there. So keep watch behind us. We're going to leave the window open for you guys.
And or a cat.
The cat's going to entertain us. As always, that's Kiki, if you see her. She is now walking where the camera is, so...
If the camera falls into the sink, it's the cat's fault. Okay.
All right, guys. You can take down our little name thingy now.
Okay, name thingy coming down. Bonk.
All right. This evening we wanted to talk to you about nomadic travel paces. And our cat would like to talk to you about tortilla chips because she is right now stealing tortilla chips right off camera. It's really cute. If I had multiple cameras, this would be awesome.
Yes. She just put her head in the bag.
Okay. All right.
Enough cat stuff. Pace. Okay, so yes. So we're going to talk about finding your ideal pace of travel and how the process we've been through over the years of finding our pace. Because that's actually one of the things that I guess most often derails people is either moving too fast or too slow.
Or too slow or too fast.
Or too slow or too fast.
So first thing, there is no right or wrong way. What works for me may not work for you, may not work for them. What's working for me now may not work for me next month.
And that is actually a hugely important thing, is understanding that the pace that feels right and is working for you may change, and it might throw all your plans out the window, but you're allowed to change your pace. And we're going to talk about that more in a bit.
So some examples of different styles that we see common in both the RVing and the cruising communities is kind of this one pace is a 2-2 rule is kind of the pace for sanity, and that's travel 2 hours, be in by 2, stay at least 2 nights.
Yeah, but the more extreme, you have the travel every day pace. Yes, and there are people who do that every day, 8 hours a day traveling, 8 hours a day of tourist, and 8 hours a day of sleep. And
that's not sustainable for long. I don't think for many people.
No, that's tough.
It's tough. Then there's the slowing down the pace for maybe you're staying places more in the week to 2 week range, which is actually a really great pace.
What we've been experimenting with lately is staying places a month at a time, which is, well, we'll talk about it more, but is a really refreshing pace. It's something a lot of people don't really consider. They think they're nomadic, they have to move a lot, or the next kind of pace is
the seasonal pace, where you actually, like a lot of folks will go to the south in the winter and find a great spot and be there for 3, 4, 5, 6 months.
Particularly for work campers, that is a very common style because the job and that job requires that sort of pace.
Which is what we're getting into, which is what are the things that might dictate your pace.
Okay.
You're really great at jumping ahead on the timeline.
Hinting at the things, but then we go detailed. Yes.
All right, so that is a great one, is work demand. So whether you're working locally, work camping, maybe volunteering at a campground or even being paid, doing things, seasonal work at some of the national parks. Amazon, sugar beet harvest, those sorts of jobs obviously can influence your pace because you have requirements to be on site for a certain amount of time. If you're working remotely, like we do, travel days impact our work schedule. So sometimes, especially if we're working on a big project, we just need to be in one space for a while and not worried about the travel.
And a lot of other people who have a typical work week schedule where they work Monday through Friday 9 to 5, that basically that dictates a weekly pace or monthly pace because they can't move every day just because the job requires them to be connected.
Yep. So we know a lot of nomads who maybe will move every week or two, but they use the weekends to move if they have a normal 9 to 5 requirement in their jobs. Weather can influence your pace. As you get to the south in the winter, well, that's where a lot of snowbirds go, us included. So there's limited spots, and sometimes you just need to secure one long term.
And then actually, particularly impacting people in boats, cruisers, is hurricane season might significantly dictate your pace if you have to be above or below a certain line on the map just for your insurance requirements.
Definitely, sort of thing. So, and sometimes you just want to avoid hurricanes.
Yes, exactly. We're not doing a good job of that.
We're not. We'll talk about what we're up to right now and how we're defying our own recommendations. Costs can be a factor in how you want to pace your travels. Being emotional all the time means you're spending fuel to move locations. You're potentially paying nightly rates at campgrounds and marinas, which could be a lot more expensive. Or perhaps you're doing boondocking or free overnight stays. Cost. And then family, it can actually dictate your pace quite a bit, is being able to schedule your time around family and friends and their events and where you need to be and how you need to get between them can dictate whether you're staying stuck in one place or whether you have to get across the country really fast for a wedding. And that was kind of our first year. The types of stays that you enjoy. When we're RVing, our preferred places to stay don't allow long-term unless we're volunteering there.
Yeah. So a lot of the state parks and national parks and stuff like that have 2 weeks max limits, and if you're in the season, you're lucky to get just a day or 2 or 3 sometimes, just because the reservations are so overbooked.
Boondocking, a lot of public lands, public campgrounds, state, federal, they have a 14-day limit, and that's if you can find a 14-day reservation on those. So that will dictate your stays. If you prefer more commercial accommodations, then you can maybe be able to find the monthly and longer stays.
Yeah. And then, something that might really dictate your pace is your tank capacity and resources you have on board. So if you are trying to go someplace where you're dry camping, boondocking, only have electric hookups, and your tanks only last 5 days, well, you've got to move every 5 days, even if it's just down and around into the dump station. But if you've designed around 2 weeks or even longer, then you can have a lot more flexibility in that.
And also your power situation. If you're in a place that's really hot, like it is right now in summer, going places where you can get electrical hookups might be a lot easier than constantly running the generator to run an air conditioner or sweating it out.
Okay, so that's yes. Okay.
Let's talk about some of the pros and cons. The pros of short stays versus long stays.
Okay.
Starting with short stays.
Well, let's see.
Do you need to read your notes?
Yeah. So these are your notes. I'm trying not to jump ahead by mistake.
When you're.
So the most basic one is just if you want to drink from the fire hose and see a lot of stuff, you're going to see a lot more if you're moving constantly. If there's never a daily rerun, because it's not even an option. You're always somewhere new. That is a huge pro of the short stay, particularly if you've got that need for novelty.
Or if you've got a limited amount of time that you can travel. So some folks may be taking like a gap year or gap months in between jobs, in between transitions or phases of their life. Or maybe you're just setting out for a couple of years to see the country or the world before you choose your next spot to settle down at. If you're on that sort of timeline, then you're probably going to want to maximize that time on the road and have the shorter stays.
Now, another thing is, if you are moving frequently, you can get into a travel rhythm, whether this is by boat or RV, where it just becomes kind of second nature. Of like, okay, you can get up in the morning, you do a little bit of prep work, you drive or cruise for a couple hours, then you have setup and stuff. And once you get kind of a rhythm going, it almost becomes second nature. And that is an advantage of being at a quick pace, because if you start to slow that down, then that pace starts to stumble. If you get too spread out, you really can't keep that up.
It definitely takes longer to get in motion after we've been still for a while. But if we're in a hyper travel mode, we kind of stay in travel mode. We're not setting out the picnic the chairs. We're not, things are just ready to go, and it's really super quick for us.
You gotta stop this. No, get your head out of there.
The cat is still eating tortilla chips.
She's had her head in this bag. It's been adorable, but we gotta stop it. She's had 3 so far. She knows we're on camera. She's taking advantage of it.
Exactly. She knows we're Yeah. No, I see your eyes.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. Yeah. All right. So, shorter stays allow you to make more miles. So if you've got commitments in different parts of the country, weddings, births, graduations, those seem to always come into all of our schedules. It's a lot easier if you're doing shorter stays to be able to make those sorts of events if those are important to you.
Okay. Now let's see. Oh, so okay, there's some things that it's actually cheaper when you're traveling quickly because there's certain discount clubs like Passport America that you get half price on RV spots, but you really only get sometimes 2, maybe 1 day. So perfect for quickly passing through and keeping that fast pace going. But those discounts evaporate. But there's other side of that coin.
If you qualify for the National Park Senior Pass, you get half off at a lot of federal campgrounds, but those federal campgrounds only have a 14-day stay limit and may have limited reservation availability, so you're better able to take advantage of those discounts.
And then Harvest Hosts, one of our favorite ways to travel, but in Harvest Host, staying at a winery or brewery or museum, generally the invitation is to stay 1 night, maybe 2 if you're lucky. So not really good for a slow pace going through someplace.
Yep, and just any other overnights that you might be doing on commercial lots like the Walmarts and rest stops and things like that. So the blacktop boondocking things are generally only anticipated to be 1 night at a time. And boondocking in general, if you're going out on public lands, again, you've got that 14-day limit.
In a lot of places, yes.
Mm-hmm. Easier availability with short-term stays if you want to be in some of the cool spots. It's sometimes a lot easier to snag a 2 or 3 night reservation than it is a 2-week reservation at some state parks.
Particularly in the season, there's you're usually just snagging somebody else's cancellation because a lot of these places are booked up 6 months or a year in advance. So you gotta weasel in, and you're usually not going to find a 2-week opening.
Could be really hard, but sometimes you can get those last-minute cancellations for lots. So basically, shorter stays give you the ability to see a lot more unique places in a quicker amount of time. That's the big advantage, and that's one reason that drives us sometimes to push ourselves.
Yes.
Now the long-term stays. Now we're talking long-term. I think our dividing line is somewhere between the 2-week and 1 month and above.
Yeah, I consider a 2-week a nice long stay, but when you're really pushing it into a month, it kind of changes things even more. And the advantages of stopping for a month is, well, in some ways, it's like getting to know your favorite restaurant and go back more than once. Maybe even have actually the staff recognize you. Enjoying your favorite things, whatever they are, being able to go back and have seconds. It's wonderful.
Yeah, we love finding a favorite sushi place or a favorite pizza place, and where the wait staff gets to know us and say, hey, you want your usual? And sometimes when they know your usual, that's kind of a sign it's time to move on to.
But it is really nice because there's so many amazing places in this country, and it's nice to actually have a chance to go deeper into some of them and not just have that quick snapshot view.
Long-term stays allow you to get set up more and spread out. We definitely know, as much as we try to minimize the amount of stuff to set up and take down at each stop, when we're stopped for a while, there is a different feeling to the way that we set up.
Yes. It's kind of comfortable when we know we're setting up for multiple weeks. To really, we pull out all the stuff. We'll decorate around us sometimes. We'll hang outdoor art up. We'll put out the Christmas lights. We'll bring out the fire pit and the grill. And
not on the boat.
Not on the boat. and the boat, you don't really have a lot of those opportunities because all your stuff is contained.
That is a difference in boating and RVing. Is I feel like our travel mode and our living mode is very same on the boat.
Yes.
There's not much transition between the two.
Just untie the lines and push the entire house out.
Being still longer allows you to get more into a daily routine. When you're traveling all the time, it's really hard to know, is this a place where I can get a long walk in every day? When we're still for a while, we get to know the places that we can get out and get our fitness and keep active. Keep to a routine for work hours versus
where we're
play
at
hours.
Yeah, where we're at right now, we've actually joined a gym, got a monthly pass to a local gym, which has been great to get into that sort of routine because it's just way too hot to do too much exercise outdoors in Florida right now.
So yeah, it's been great to just go over and get on an ellipticycle for an hour and then do a yoga class.
Catching up on all the life chores, the things that it's hard to make appointments for if you're just going to be passing through for a few days. Eye doctor appointment,
doctors, maintenance, getting your RV or boat washed and waxed. engine oil and having packages catch up with you, because not everything is primable overnight, unfortunately.
I get frustrated when things aren't primable, but it's like, oh wait, we're actually here for a couple more weeks. I guess that'll be fine to have 10-day delivery, but it feels so primitive to, it's like, not overnight. This is crazy.
Like we just wrapped up reordering our business cards. We use Moo, which we print custom photos on each of our cards. But they, it takes sometimes a week to get delivery on those. So it's like, okay, it's time to refresh those. We got to have a mailing address now. I can actually think through, order what I want this time. That's sort of things. So monthly stuff. Monthly rates at RV parks and marinas are a heck of a lot cheaper than daily rates.
It's sometimes ridiculously a lot cheaper. Like you pay basically 2 weeks worth of weekly stays might get you an entire month at the same place, and it is such an incredible way to control your costs.
And you're not spending fuel
yes.
for moving your house. Now, if you have a car, you might be spending a lot more fuel to go out and explore the area around you, and your costs may actually go up because you are doing more entertainment,
more dining out,
and taking care of maintenance stuff.
Although on the other hand, actually, because once you kind of settle into some place, you don't feel like you have to go out and go to the top restaurants, because once you've done them once, or you've got an entire month to spread out doing it, you start to eat home more. When you're being quick tourist, you often are like, got to do the main thing.
Right.
What's the local specialty?
That is true. That's one of those daily balance things where when we're still here, like we got a monthly stay here, we're eating out maybe 2 or 3 times a week. Whereas if we're in major motion mode, and we have access to restaurants,
a nice restaurant, we're like, okay, we just spent today on the road or on the water, and we're going ashore, and let's go, hit the cool restaurant in town.
We cook at home a lot healthier, more often when we're still. It's when you're still for a while, it's easier for the awesome to catch up with you. When you're in motion all the time, you're out there looking for the awesome, or waiting for you to encounter it. When we're still, I don't know, it seems the awesome still continues to happen. It's just, it happens sometimes a lot easier, whether it's people we get to meet.
Yeah, or because you've got kind of a fixed place to be, your friends and family can actually come to you for a change, and you get to be the host as opposed to the visitor. Just a really nice way to flip things upside down for us nomads who are used to always being the visitor.
Yes, so it's great when we're still for a while. We came to this specific location where we're at. We're in New Smyrna Beach, Florida. We came here because some YouTube viewers said, hey, if you're coming through, we'd love to meet you. And then we started looking. It's like, oh, there's a great marina. We're going to do a week stay. And we got here, and they had availability, so we extended it to a month. We loved the area.
They're like, we have a great 4th of July in this town, and there's all this cool stuff here. And it's like, walking distance to all those good things. We'll stay for a month. What's
great.
the rush?
We got the gym just down the street. We've got a great little historic downtown for dining and unique shopping and
Pokemon hunting.
Hunting. Yeah, we're Pokemon addicts.
It's keeping us out in the sun.
Yes, I'm loving that. And it's a lot easier to get involved in those local activities. We went to a bluegrass local concert in the park the other night.
And other, like when we were down in Fort Pierce, we went to a whole bunch of concerts and that were passing through town. Things that are passing through is a lot easier to catch when you're stopped someplace long enough to catch them and find out about them.
Yeah, we'll go. Well, a lot of times one of our favorite things to do is look, is there a local community theater? We love live theater, so we'll go and book up tickets for our stay as soon as we get in somewhere and know we're there, because we love experience local live theater.
Again, tricky to do when you're passing through quickly.
And you can't plan around in advance. And how are you going to get there in time? And connecting with local community. We mentioned about being able to meet more people, but we also have the opportunity to meet them again and again. So like at this marina, turns out when we pulled in, some other YouTube followers happen to be long-term
right over there.
Stays here. We've been enjoying hanging out just casually. That's not something we get to do very often when we're in motion a lot, to casually hang out with the same people over and over again.
Because usually that second time you're hanging out with somebody is when you get the better conversations, because everybody's gone through that quick story and their past history and stuff like that, and all the quick surface questions. And then you really start to get to know people, and love that about a slower pace.
Yeah, so we've been loving that. It's one reason we decided to stay here longer as well. If you enjoy volunteering, which we do, it's a lot easier to do when you're staying still for a while. As well as seeking out local employment if that's your thing. And of course, I mean, the biggest advantage of the longer stays is avoiding travel burnout.
Right. It's kind of I don't think there's any traveler who has been traveling from even just a family vacation. You get that point. You know that feeling, that kind of just like tension, that snippiness, that travel burnout, and that is a sign that you're moving too fast.
Or you need to slow it down for a bit. Travel burnout's real. We have gone through it so many times. You just get tired of constantly having to plan the next stop. Am I able to get a reservation there? How long am I going to be able to stay there? Am I going to get to do the things I want to do when I'm there?
Is juggling the logistics of, okay, my mail reached me here, I need to order this part, but the part needs 5 days, and I'm only here for 3, so when's the next spot I can go to? And,
Yes. And the whole process of arriving and leaving, I mean, there is packing up and taking down to do. Docking, we're getting better and better at it, but
it's still exciting.
It's still exciting.
Yeah.
Backing into an RV spot is, even after 11, 12 years of doing it, it's still exciting.
So, yeah, sometimes. And it's just some days it's exciting in a good way, and other days it's like, really, I just want to be done and go to bed or I'm done with this, and it's just nice to hit the pause button for a while.
I was going to skip ahead to there, then wrap up with there. Is that okay with you?
Oh, sure.
All right.
Yep.
So how do you find your pace? And we can only share from our experience. And number one is getting in tune with yourself. Know what those low-level stress signs are in you of when you're approaching that travel burnout and you need to slow down.
And there's also the opposite of, the feeling all of us naturally nomadic people have is that itch that is like, I'm ready to go, I'm ready to move. There's something, this place isn't doing it for me anymore. It's time to hit the road. And that travel itch is, know when you're feeling that and be willing to act on it.
I felt that at Fort Pierce about 5 weeks in, and I wanted to act on it, but
sometimes
you can't.
Yeah. But one of the most important things we've learned over the years is when you do feel that you start to realize you're going too fast or you start to realize you're going too slow, is don't be afraid to change your plans. That's a recipe for your own burnout and disaster if you get too stuck in the plans you've already made and you stay someplace too long or you move too quickly.
So leave yourself that adaptability to change it up. Sometimes that means we might leave a prepaid monthly spot a little bit early. We look at it as we're already getting a good rate.
Yeah.
So
and sometimes we look at the monthly rate as like, if we were paying weekly or daily, when's the break-even point, and after that we just consider the spot free and we can leave early without any regrets.
And it's a great perspective for us, because then it leaves us the mental ability to say, you know what, I'm ready. And some of our signs of when we're ready is we get tired of walking the same places.
Yes.
We can actually start to see the trail we're making of the places that we're walking repetitively.
Yeah. When walking gets boring, that's when it's time to move. And then the opposite is, a lot of times you might have reservations. If you're on a fast pace, moving quickly, you might have reservations that if you want to stop someplace for a longer period of time, you're giving those up, and there might be change or cancellation fees, and you feel that pressure to not let that $20 go to waste. But really, your sanity is worth more than a $10 or $20 cancellation fee.
And then some of the signs that we get when we're moving too fast is the little things start to feel a lot more stressful. The weather delays, the backing into a site or docking, and just feels like stressful, or the whole like getting up in the morning and we're leaving, it's like, I just don't have it in me to do it today. So we just check in with each other,
right? And or you will make mistakes, you will overdo it, you'll go wrong, and you will, instead of checking in with each other, you'll bite each other's head off on occasion, and that's a triple sign of change the pace.
Yes, sometimes we miss each other's signals.
Yes.
And
we're both like, I'm hating this pace, but we're not talking to each other, and then eventually somebody blows up.
And there's like, oh, you've been feeling this all along. Well, why didn't you say anything? Why do you? And sometimes it makes me feel like, oh, you're waiting for me to blow up instead of expressing your needs. So that's something that we're constantly. I mean, communication is something we're always working on. So our history of changing up our pace.
Yes.
That's where you can show those slides.
Okay, we got the slides over here. Slideshow with video overlay. There we are.
All right.
Okay.
That is our map for our first 7 months on the road. 2007, we left in May.
Yeah, so the first year was me solo, and then a little bit of joint trips before. This was 2007. Us fully going. Cherie left her house behind, and boom, we're on the road.
So we started in Melbourne, Florida, which is where I was living at the time. And Chris was the best man in a wedding in California.
West.
So we decided to take the direct route by going up to St. Louis, down to Austin, and then across to St. Louis in 5 weeks.
And we learned, that's where we kind of decided nomadic standard time is how we need to plan things. And unfortunately, we couldn't get the wedding to change their schedule. But like the trip to Austin was to have dinner with Cherie's brother.
We should have skipped that because that was a 2-week delay, or 2 weeks down and out, because we ended up changing out our Jeep at the time.
Yes, because we're moving way too fast and drove through a storm.
Yep, and then we needed to get back because while we were on the road that year, I was diagnosed with something that was going to require major surgery. And at the time, I had an HMO plan that would only cover me back home in Florida. So we had to get back across country by the end of the year before that thing became worse.
Yeah, fortunately, we were traveling at the time in a tiny little trailer and Jeeps that was very nimble and made making miles relatively easy, and still that new relationship, new travel energy, just like eager to see a lot and move a lot. But it did burn us out a lot too. We went way too fast of a pace.
I think once we got to South Dakota, so that would have been like 5 months into the journey, it was the first time we stopped anywhere for more than a week. I think we actually got there for 2 nights. And we said, we have to stay. We cannot go any further right now.
I guess Burning Man was a long stop too.
But Burning Man is not it's not relaxing.
Yes.
It's not a bit.
You don't catch up with yourself there. It's
you do in a different
way.
Okay. All right. So over the years, we learned a lot that first year on the road.
Slideshow with overlay. You should now change. There we go.
All right. What year is this one?
This would be the next one. So.
No, this is.
They were in the right order.
This is 2011 when we moved over to the Virgin Islands. I think.
That's right.
So, and just some of that's 1 year's travel that we did. Plus, we parked the RV and moved to the Virgin Islands for 5 months.
And that 5-month pause was a great grounding. It got us back to the point of we're ready to start moving again by the time.
We really reset our intention. So we decided at that point, when we're going back to RVing, we're selling the little RV and getting something that was going to be comfortable for staying in for weeks and months at a time.
Because when we were traveling in both the Tiny Tab and the Oliver, it was such a small space that it wasn't comfortable to be stopped. And we were finding ourselves wanting longer stays, but we had a house that was too small to enjoy a longer stay.
Mm-hmm. This year is the year that we bought our bus.
Yes. And
that involved borrowing an RV, because the red line is us in the Oliver delivering it to the new owner. The purple is us borrowing a small RV to try to get our act together because we basically became homeless. The let's see, somewhere in there's train tracks. We bought a month-long rail pass and spent a month riding Amtrak around the country looking at buses.
Mm-hmm. And then we got the bus, and then we had to fly around to get the cat and our stuff from St. Louis out to the bus. And then we even had hot air balloons in that year, but we didn't actually fly in them, so
not
I don't
that year
know.
we
Yeah,
didn't.
but that was a year of a lot of different modes of travel, a lot of different paces,
and a lot of changing up our lives.
A lot of changing up.
And my dad got diagnosed with cancer. His cancer returned at the end of that year, so I'm so glad we had the bus so that we could live.
And we ended the year with the long-term stay at
in Melbourne.
Yeah, and that was wonderful to be able to say, hey, we've got a mobile home. Basically, we could stay at a mobile home park in our bus for an extended period of time
and be there for family.
And change that pace up completely.
Yes. This was this is 2006. We basically started in the Southwest, came across country, and then we went up to North. And it looks like a lot of dots.
2016, not 6.
16,
yes,
sorry.
Yes.
This is the year that we started shopping for our boat. And I have to say, this year, we get it a lot right. I think we ended that year feeling...
We had kept a pretty good balance.
Especially our East Coast. We did stays of 3 to 10 nights in any one spot.
Right, and we really avoided a lot of that fast-paced feeling. We did a lot. You notice how close together a lot of the dots are. We did a lot of short driving days, which would not leave us too burned out. We try to aim to get in places, like basically in time for a late lunch, and get to be fully set up and relaxed by the time evening rolls around. And having that control on the pace made a great difference in quality of life.
But we also realized while we're shopping for our boat, we changed entirely what our pace was going to be, because we were starting to feel the burnout after a couple of years of keeping a similar pace to this one. And we're really ready to integrate in more monthly stays. And if we do the Great Loop the traditional way, which is in a year,
that's way too
we're
fast.
going to burn ourselves out. And that's when we decided we're really just going to be doing extended cruising, generally following the Great Loop path.
We're going to be slow loopers or sloopers.
Sloopers, I like that.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So that's when we decided we were willing to change what we were looking for in a boat, so it would be more like a mobile condo than a adventure vessel.
Right, because when we started looking, we were looking at 35-foot boats, and that would have been back equivalent to our Tab and Oliver days of a really great, efficient, tiny size for making lots of frequent stops and frequent hops.
But we said no, we weren't up for that.
Yeah, we want something comfortable to live in for an extended period of time, and even we're doing it more than we even realized. We're going at an even slower pace than we expected, and it's been really nice.
But I'm happier, and that's the important part. This is this year's so far. Going out to Austin was in the bus, so we moved the bus out earlier this year back to Austin, so it is in storage there, ready for us to pick up this winter. But our boating has just basically from Miami to here, New Smyrna Beach.
Yes, and we've just been slowly crawling up the coast of Florida and getting to know places and really liking this pace. And it being shoulder season or off season for cruising, we're finding no trouble with availability. We're finding trouble with heat. And hopefully, so far no troubles with tropical storms, but knocking on woods and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So it's been good. We are slowing down our pace quite a bit. We really thought, logically, we should be keeping a really quick pace, and by now we thought we'd be like up in South Carolina.
Yes. Yeah, because like even the last time we talked about our travel plans, we were saying our goal was to be up in the Chesapeake by hurricane season.
Peak hurricane season starting August.
Yeah.
There's no way we're going to do that and keep sane.
And once we basically, as we were getting further and further delayed in Fort Pierce, we're like, we can do it. Certainly we can do it. We've got friends who do it in that distance in 6 days.
We're doing it right now.
In a boat. We could certainly catch back up with that original intention, but it would be rushed, particularly in a boat. That's a long distance.
It would be a lot of traveling, and we would miss a lot of these awesome towns for what? For the chance that a hurricane might hit where we're at.
Knocking on wood again.
Knocking on wood again, and you have to keep in mind, just because you're in a hurricane zone is not a guarantee you're going to hit with a hurricane.
Right, and again, we are out now, well out of the Keys and well out of South Florida, which is the kind of the.
We're a lot of places where we can get inland, we can get lifted out, so we may not even leave Florida this year, just so that we may go do the St. John's, I think is what we're thinking of.
Right now we're thinking of going up to Jacksonville and then heading south again, basically all the way down to Orlando.
For inland Florida. We figure inland Florida is probably safer than anywhere we can get by hurricane season.
And it's a really unique, apparently it's quite an amazing little detour on the inland waterways that a lot of people skip because they're in a rush going up and down the intercoastal. So, hey, St. John's River sounds like a really cool trip.
So, slowing down the pace. It feels really good. Fort Pierce stressed us out. We had a lot of business chaos in the last month. Yes. So when the opportunity to extend at this marina came up over this a couple days ago, we're like, that feels right.
Yeah, and it was kind of crazy. We're like, so can we stay for a month? We'd already paid for 2 weeks, and we're like, yeah, you can. And
actually, it's cheaper. I owe you money.
Yeah, we got a month is cheaper than 2 weeks, so maybe we can just pad this out by giving you a few extra days. And we're like, okay.
Not what I was expecting.
Not what I was expecting. We're getting the rest of the month for free. Okay, it's win-win.
All right. So we are ready to switch over to the Q&A portion of our broadcast.
Okay, so queue up questions in the chat box now.
Ooh, fancy overlays. Some of our patrons actually submitted some questions in advance, so we'll start with them. But we do welcome your questions as well. After the Q&A, we'll wrap this up probably in about 20-25 minutes. We are actually having an after party this evening. If you remember from some olden days, we used to stay on camera after the live broadcast and hang out even longer.
Yes, but now we're kind of doing the after parties because we really like them to be interactive. We're doing that as a kind of a patron hangout with two-way video chat, which is very fun.
So if you are interested in becoming more of our closer-knit community, for us, Patreon is not about funding for our content. We do this all for fun. We are not here to...
That's why we have like the cheapest possible ways to join Patreon. It's just a way for us to have a two-way connection with people.
And more of a closed, non-public community. So we started that about a year ago, and it has been amazing for us. Thank you, patrons, for being there with us. The support is not financial. It's community for us. And we love being able to share more in real time, more of the daily stuff. And our travel content is usually a few weeks behind. Our patrons usually know exactly what we're up to.
Right.
So.
Yeah, well, actually, the patrons can see our satellite tracker, so they know literally right where we are.
All right. So bring up those questions.
Okay.
Patron Q&A.
Ding.
All right. So one question that came in was, how do we keep our bus and RV clean? And they were asking both about the exterior as well as doing dishes to cleaning the bathrooms and conserve water.
And I thought I had this set up with a way to do a video overlay on top of the patrons, but I guess I didn't. Oh, we had that as a slide, and I deleted the slide.
So we can go back to us.
Okay, so boom, boom. Okay.
All right. So conserving water is something. I mean, the first days on the RV when we had really super tiny tanks, we got really awesome at water conservation.
Well, yeah, well, particularly when we had the tab, the water tank was 5 gallons and was super minimal. And then the Oliver, we had a lot of water, but it was still not a whole lot.
But we got really good at taking just quick rinse showers. We would use campground facilities for our showering and bathroom needs. Nowadays, the bus has both the bus and the boat have over 100 gallons of fresh water, which keeps us happy for up to 2 weeks without really thinking about it.
Yeah.
But that's because we're so conservative in the past and we just carried it through.
Yeah, but if we do on the boat, we have a washing machine and we have a bathtub, and both of those can really have an impact on our water supply.
But we don't do that when we're in conservation mode.
Exactly.
So, when we're out anchoring because what we're finding is we like to spend a week or two cruising and anchoring and then find a marina for a longer stay. When we're in those cruising modes, we pretty much leave one marina with full tanks, and we are kind of planning to arrive at our next marina by the time they run out, or finding a water fill up somewhere in between because we don't have a water maker.
Right, and for the kind of cruising we're doing right now, coastal cruising, a water maker is usually not really in the kind of water where you want to make fresh water out of it. But if we ever did the Bahamas for an extended time, that's when a water maker makes all the sense in the world.
So the water really conservation hasn't been an issue. I mean, we the way we do our dishes is we spray them with a little bit of diluted soap in a spray bottle, so they pre-soak. Scrub them first without water and then rinse them, and that's pretty much how we've done our dishes forever. So that's one way. Showers, you turn on the water, you rinse, you turn off.
Button that
we have a button that shuts it off. We soap up, we rinse. Our showers probably don't use much more than maybe 2 gallons of water each.
Yeah, we can be very efficient. It's just like second nature for us, so we can go forever, it seems.
Yeah, we don't think about it too much. As far as washing the RV and the boat, when we get a nice light rain or a steady drizzle with no thunderstorms, I actually go out with a brush and I just put on clothes I don't mind getting wet, and I go out and I wash the boat or the bus in the rain. Now, a boat's a lot harder because
you can't fall in.
Usually when you're at a dock, you only have access to a portion of your boat, and otherwise then you're getting in the water and you need a way to secure yourself to it, because I found out that if you're pressing on the boat, it moves or it moves you back. So
it's harder to clean below the hull. Basically, it's a lot trickier to clean on the boat.
Yes. So both the RV and the boat, once or twice a year, we actually splurge for spa days for them each and hire someone to do a really thorough cleaning on the exterior and a wax job. Okay. What do you want to do next? How do you find marinas and anchorages? Sure.
Okay. It's actually just kind of browsing ahead. We've got Waterway Guide, which is a paper book.
And they have a website.
And a website as well, and we use both of those resources to scout ahead and read about the waters we're going to be cruising. Then we just start reading through Inactive Captain, which is a wonderful online community and website, and it's also available in a lot of apps. It's a big crowdsourced database, and particularly for anchorages. It's a wonderful way to learn about where people have been. And then also we kind of sometimes just Google around and check where people we know have been and anchored before. Our friends Sean and Louise of Our Odyssey have been cruising up and down this coast quite a bit, and so I'm often like, where did they stop and what did they have to say about this place, and have gotten a lot of ideas from them, even though their boat can't go in the shallow places we can, so it's kind of fun to go places they can't.
So we just pay attention. There's Skipper Bob's.
Yeah.
It's a printed book that you can buy that has a lot of anchorage spots on it as well. So we just use all the resources that are out there, just like we do in campgrounds, and find what our next spot's going to be.
Yeah, and then a lot of the same tips we use in hunting for boondocking spots too is use satellite view and stuff to scout places from the air. And actually, if we're close and we're scouting someplace that's nearby, we'll actually use the drone and scout it from the air to see what's the approach like. Are there other boats there?
Is there room for us?
Yeah. So we have used the drone to scout anchorages a couple times. But yeah, it's just kind of actually part of the fun of planning is planning a day or two ahead of what are some potential stops and backup stops for anchorages. You always want to have backup plans if one anchorage doesn't work out for some reason.
Same with boondocking and RVing. I think the follow-up question that they had to that one was, when you get to a marina, is there help available with docking?
Okay.
And that is something that we are finding is pretty much across the board available at most marinas we've been to, I think, except for one. Is when we arrive, they send out a dock hand or sometimes a dock master themselves to come in and help take that first line, which is so helpful.
And also just to have, when you call in on the radio and stuff, to have that advice of what's the best way to approach which side of your boat. Do you need to have the fenders on? Should you go in bow in or stern in? And they might leave it up to you, or they might say it's going to be a lot easier, a lot simpler for the site if you go stern in or bow in. And having that and knowing that in advance as opposed to right when you're pulling in and you got to spin is really good.
Right. And it's a lot different than in RVing. RVing, you can stop, even get out and assess the approach into your spot. In the boat, you're pretty much arriving to your marina, and if there's currents and wind, you're dealing with a lot in trying to figure out how to get into your slip. And that's not the time to be thinking about, am I bowing in, sterning in, what's going to be the best way on and off your boat.
There's no pause button. You can't just say, okay, stop, I need to get out and think about this and look around. So yeah, it's always very helpful to have somebody with lines. But yeah, definitely.
To grab that first line, because once you have that first line on the dock, you're in. And usually, I mean, that's
helps.
Once that first line on, it's like, okay, now you can rest and you can logically think through, okay, where are the spring lines going? Where are my aft and my bow lines going? Yeah. And having someone who knows that marina and knows the currents is invaluable. But sometimes the dock hands have never been on a boat, and you're teaching them how to handle a line. That was at the last marina we're at. The one in Fort Pierce, brand new marina. All the dock hands didn't know boats, so we were teaching them line handling, which was crazy because we're newbies ourselves.
Yes, but okay. Back to the questions. What do we got? How strict are reservations? That's all part of that same thing.
Yeah, so he had also asked is, when you're making a reservation for a marina, how strict are they? So in boating, the worst thing you can do is have a schedule, which is kind of counterintuitive to having reservations. Now, if you're in peak season, and that's one reason we're kind of liking not doing the loop on the traditional loop path, is we're almost always shoulder season.
So far, yeah.
It's been super easy to get marina reservations, and usually we can call and say, hey, we're thinking of arriving somewhere between Monday and Wednesday, weather dependent, and they're like, okay, cool, just give us a holler that morning.
Yeah, it's so far we've had incredible flexibility. We hear stories of peak season time though, where it is
strict,
chaotic and strict, and you have to be out of this spot because there's another bigger boat coming in, and that would I'm glad, because that would be a lot more stressful, and we're not having to deal with that right now.
So our off-shoulder season thing has made it really easy for extending stays and say, hey, the weather's not looking good, or this project's overrunning.
Yeah, and some of our favorite times in the RV were also shoulder seasons. There's something magic about shoulder seasons in places. All
right, we had one last question on there is, how do you find interesting things to do once you're in a spot?
You get out and you start walking until you see interesting things, or you ask the people, or look for signs. Actually, that's how we found out about the bluegrass concert, which is just a few blocks away. It was a sign hanging up. Yeah,
we read signs. We might go, if we're in a downtown area, we might go find the local events guide.
Yep, the News and Arts Weekly.
And see what's around. We'll talk to people in our marina or campground about what's up. That's one reason we like playing Pokemon is, number one, it keeps us entertained, but it's going to historical places in a town, so we're getting out there visiting and learning about the town, and just sometimes in the process of strolling around a town chasing these little Pokemons and spinning Pokestops, we're encountering, oh, whoa, look, this concert's going on, or
Yeah. We steer by serendipity, and particularly when it comes to finding local adventures, it's usually worked out really well for us.
All right, we're going to switch over to the chat room here for a few minutes. Linda had asked, I swear I saw you running in a Gone with the Winds video when they were in Alaska running in a road race.
That was us.
That was us, yes. So summer 2015, a whole bunch of us RVers went to Alaska.
And we kind of did it the tricky way, is we took a cruise to Alaska, then took a train up to Fairbanks, met up with everybody else, and then we rented an RV.
Right, so there is a midnight run, and that just happened last week. It's on the longest night.
On the solstice, yeah.
So it's a run that starts at 10 p.m., and then we finished, because we walked most of it, we finished it around midnight.
And it is such a blast. And like the day before and day after, there was the midnight baseball game with no lights played in the minor league team up there under the midnight sun, essentially. And again, that was a blast. I think that was kind of one of the main ideas. Is one of the people going, one of the RVers going, had always dreamed of as a big baseball fan, always dreamed of going to this game. And so we all said, let's all be there for this game. And that became kind of the convergence.
So all of those who drove up there, they converged in Fairbanks, and we planned our trip. That's the year we left our bus behind to be remodeled.
Right.
That's a different story.
Long story. Go back and see the videos.
But we ended up spending 7 weeks traveling by cruise ships. We were all in a backpack.
Yeah.
We traveled by train around Alaska, and then rented an RV for a week and did the Kenai.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did get to meet up with the Winds and the Technomads and a whole bunch of other RV bloggers.
And that was actually, I think actually that kind of points out that the smaller the amount of gear you're traveling with, the easier it is to go fast. Because when we're traveling with just a backpack, a lot easier to keep up a quick travel pace as opposed to a big 47-foot boat.
Yeah, somewhat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. Corky.
Here's my question.
So Corky has a question. They're a mixed race couple. And what do we think the attitudes in RV parks will be? We don't have that experience to share with you because we aren't there. I can tell you, if you're our neighbor, you're just going to be awesome, normal people to us.
We know.
I actually, Moving Forward Adventures, I think, is on this video chat. They have a YouTube channel. They are a mixed race couple, and they are sharing about their travels. I would highly recommend speaking with other mixed race couples who can share what their experiences are. Mine's going to be biased. I love people. I love awesome, cool people. If you're awesome, cool people,
right.
You know.
And we haven't heard a lot of people having bad experiences, but every so often you run across somebody who's got some really hateful attitudes, and that apparently happens, and I really kind of feel bad for her, but I'm actually pleased at how few people I've heard have stories like that, so that's good.
Yes. I can only go from what others share with us, and so more Moving Forward Adventures there. Corky, you'll be fine. Sabrina, I've never had a problem. So
perfect.
I think it's all about attitude. If you go in and expecting a problem and people to have judgments on you, you tend to see that in others.
Yeah. And also trusting your instincts and moving away when you feel bad vibes from people, which we've run across bad vibes from people. Whatever the reason they're giving you bad vibes, your house moves, and it might be better just to leave them in your dust. And yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we know a lot of same gender couples on the road, and most of them report back to us that they are welcomed with open arms everywhere they go. But there are some places in the country where they don't feel comfortable. Yep. RVers in general tend to be, there are already people thinking outside of boxes. And most of them are like, hey, as long as your dog's not, if you're cleaning up your dog's poop, I don't care, who you are.
Yeah, that's, yeah. Natasha asks, is it easy to extend your stay at a place, or is it better to plan the extended time and leave early?
It really depends upon the season and the location. If it's a place that's booked up and a place you think you might want to be, definitely get your reservation for what you want.
On the other hand, actually, a lot of times, once your feet are in the door, sometimes even if the place is booked up, well, you're the one who's there, and you will jump way ahead of people who might be on a waiting list if they're like, you just let them know when you get there that, hey, I'd like to stay longer if the opportunity comes up. And that puts you sometimes way ahead of people who might have been on a waiting list for months.
Yeah, or calling in, and especially if the manager likes you. I mean, if you're
bring them cookies.
If you're just a good person, they see you cleaning up, you see you being friendly, you're not a problem. They're going to be more likely to want to keep you around than taking a chance on an unknown.
And yeah, we've actually run across several places that have unofficial policies of they don't have any long-term spots available until somebody's been there for a short period of time. And oh yeah, now we've got a monthly spot. It's hopefully they're not using that for any sort of nefarious discrimination behind the scenes. But mostly we hear it's just a
because they limited spots.
They want to control their neighbors in a yeah.
No, they want to make sure they're going to be good neighbors.
Yeah, good neighbors, right.
Nancy says, is there a book that is easy to read on nomading? When we hit the road 12 years ago, there really, we didn't seek out any information. And I know there's a bunch of books out now. I honestly have not read a single one of them because it's all stuff we know.
There's people who are
sharing.
Write
one, but I don't have time.
Well, there's people sharing practical advice. There's people sharing just kind of
their
travel
personal stories.
And those go all the way back. Of all sorts of road trip stories and movies exist. Just find whatever personally inspires you. Yeah, there's a lot.
Find people you click with. You'll find a lot of bloggers and videographers. They are here on YouTube. A lot of them have a book that they have written.
Yes, that's true.
And they're promoting it through their stuff. And some of them are really good. Heath and Alyssa, or actually Alyssa Paget, has one, Living in an RV. They're a younger couple.
Apparently the book is really good. We haven't had a chance to read it, but
we're quoted in it.
Yeah, we're quoted in it, and we know they're both awesome and have put a lot of love and energy into that book. So
and to their community as well.
So I think that's a great place to start, probably.
But find the people that resonate with you, and then see if they have a book. That's probably the way to go about it, because there are a lot of them out there.
Bill wants to know
what box was picking outside of it. Society's boxes, Bill. Yeah. Tom wants to know, what about books on cruising the loop? Have you used any of those? I've used them as a paper. No, I don't read books.
Yeah, I've got. There's a book. I'm trying to remember. It's like Cruising America's Great Loop. It's a book that some couple did as their travel log that was just given away free at one of our Great Loop events, and I've enjoyed reading their story a little bit. But I've got their book on our bookshelf. But we haven't really used anything as much in the way of reference. There are several Great Loop books out there, that are. There's I think 2 or 3 ones that are people kind of consider prime references, and like how to buy your boat, what to pick, what to do. I do most of my research online. I'm not kind of a
book person.
I
find books get out of date very easily.
That's why we have to update ours every so often.
Yeah, our mobile internet one, that one gets out of date really quickly. I prefer reading blogs and watching videos. And then, in a way in which I can interact with the author and get feedback, just like this. Yeah. So, Joe has posted a link to Heath and Alyssa's book. Thanks, Joe.
Austin wants to know, what is your experience with bad neighbors, and how do you handle those situations when you don't want to just leave?
We've been very fortunate in which we've had, I can't think of, let's say bad neighbors. We had, by bad, they were good people. It's just, there was a huge family meetup, I think, was that one time in Oregon. It was just loud next door because there had 20 people for a family reunion, and I can't fault them for that. I wanted peace and quiet. Yeah. They wanted to meet with their family.
And so a lot of times situations like that, particularly, I guess, a lot of the people who are the most rowdy and potentially unpleasant, like having a big drunken party and stuff at a campground, well, odds are they're usually there for Friday night and Saturday night, and so sometimes we'll just grin and bear it, and we're like, okay, they're going to be packing up and gone on Sunday, and it'll be fine, and we hole up inside and watch movies on the weekend because...
Or we'll go out and explore and do other things away from the RV. So Joe's in that situation right now with bad neighbors. Okay.
Yeah, you hunker up and hide inside is one thing to do. If their neighbors are going to be there for a longer time, then maybe we'll be the ones who say, maybe we're going to leave if you don't have to give up a reservation.
Or we'll talk to the campground manager and see, is there another spot available?
Yeah, we've done that before.
That we can move to.
And other times, sometimes you kind of get sketchy neighbors, but you're not part of their drama. We've seen the police show up at a place next to us and everything, and there was domestic violence and stuff. But we're peeking out our windows and watching, but we're not part of that situation, and we're not going to become part of that situation. So we just kind of keep our distance and let them do their thing.
The bad neighbors. I hate to even use the word bad. We've had the dog that they leave and the dog barks nonstop. Well, we'll just politely let them know when they get back. Say, your dog was barking the whole time. I'm not complaining from my end. I'm concerned about, the health of your dog, and the stress on it is you might want to find ways to make your dog more comfortable.
But in general, most travelers we've run across aren't a lot of bad neighbors that we've had in all of our years on the road. There's just been a few. Mostly, I guess the bad neighbors experiences are people who are partying a little bit too hard and obnoxiously, and that usually passes within 24 hours.
Weekends are the worst, especially in prime camping seasons. And you just have to keep in mind that's part of your chosen lifestyle is you are choosing a lifestyle that is normally someone's weekend vacation.
Right.
And you're going to be living in their vacation sometimes.
Right.
And that's just part of it.
Yep. And yeah, if they want to be cranking the loud tunes until 3 in the morning and the ranger doesn't want to do anything about it, well, we'll deal with it for one night.
Or a night or two.
Yep.
Joe says his bad neighbors are leaving Tuesday morning. See?
Exactly.
Most of them are short term. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. We've been yakking for almost an hour. We are going to be switching over to our Patreon hangout here in about 15 minutes. So if you're one of our Patreons, we will see you over there. You can find the link in the Patreon. It's up in the most current post.
Do you want to show that thing off?
Oh, yes. I got to show you.
Oh, the cat curled up on top of it. Okay. It was hanging in the background, and now it has got cat all over it.
We will be having a video out on this probably later this week, but we have created our very first t-shirt. There you go. So our new shirts, we are very, very pleased with them. Of course, Just Because is the name of our dinghy, and why not the name of our boat? And
apparently quite a few people want to have
t-shirts.
So hey, we want shirts for ourselves, and if other people want shirts, cool. So we'll be announcing how to get these at some point.
Stay tuned for that video if you're interested in a shirt. We didn't want it to be a Technomadia shirt or anything like that. We want it to be something fun. That's why fun. In there for folks to wear that isn't necessarily branded, but makes you feel part of our journey because you are.
Yep.
So those will be up and available probably later this week. We'll have a video out when we're announcing the sale. It'll be only available for a limited time.
Yep. That's how the shirts become affordable, as you do a single printing batch and boom, good to go.
All right. So, how much more for the cat hair? There will be an extra charge if you want the cat hair edition.
Yes, we'll rub it on the cat. You have to ship it twice, I suppose.
Yes. The shirts will be, you'll order them directly from the t-shirt company, and then they'll be shipped directly to you. So, getting the cat hair on them.
Colors and stuff.
Yes, there'll be some other additional colors on them.
Well, no, the ones with the cat hair would be the special VIP ones, because we're going to get some to give away to people who come and hang out on our boat with us. So, those will be cat haired, but those will be hard to come by.
All right, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Thanks for being part of our journey. It brings us delight to know that you're along for the ride with us. And we will see you next time we have a topic we want to blabber on about.
Okay, take care. Ending this stream. Yeah, now YouTube says we're fine. YouTube is all on their side. Craziness.